Let's be honest for a second. When you picture getting older, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For so long, the story we've been told is, well, it's kind of bleak. It's a story about decline, about being less relevant, and yeah, maybe about some chunky walking shoes. But what if that whole story isn't just a little bit off? What if it's completely, spectacularly wrong?
I mean, this quote from Ogilvy really just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It perfectly sums up the stereotype. It's this old, tired image that's been painted for years, a quiet, predictable, and frankly, pretty uninspired group of consumers.
Well, that's the big question we're digging into today. Because you know what? The actual data, the hard science, and the real-life experiences of millions of people, they're all telling a radically different story. A story that's all about economic power, genuine happiness, and just continued growth.
And this news story? It all starts with a number. A number so huge, it just shatters all those old myths.
$15 trillion. Let that sink in for a second. To give you some perspective, that's more than the entire GDP of China. It's the spending power that people over 60 are projected to have by 2030. So yeah, we're not talking about some small niche market. This is an economic force of nature.
And this isn't some tiny slice of the population either. According to the UN, by 2030, 1 out of every 6 people on Earth will be 60 or older. This is a massive global shift. It's creating this whole new class of consumers who are active, tech-savvy, and have some serious financial firepower.
Okay, so take a look at this chart. The gap is it's staggering, right? You see the boomers over there on the left, with an average of over $800,000 in assets. Now, compare that to millennials at less than $70,000. That kind of financial power gives you the freedom to pretty much shape entire industries.
But all that money, it's really only half the story. Because what's happening on the inside, in our minds, in our emotional lives, is even more surprising. It's a phenomenon that researchers are calling the happiness paradox.
We all get this part. It's just a biological fact, right? As the years add up, our physical health generally starts to, trend downwards.
And along with that, it's true that some of our cognitive functions, like how fast we can process things, tend to slow down too. It all seems to be painting that same old, familiar picture of decline.
But here is where the plot takes a wild turn. While our bodies and parts of our brains are slowing down, our mental health, our sense of well-being, our happiness, is actually on a steady upward climb.
And this really gets to the heart of the paradox. A huge study from the National Institutes of Health followed over 1,500 people all the way from their early 20s to their 90s. And what they found was absolutely mind-blowing. A straight uphill line for mental health for their entire adult lives. Think about it. On average, people in their 90s reported being happier than people in their 20s and 30s.
So, okay, our minds are wired to get happier, but what about keeping them sharp? Well, that old fear that our brains just inevitably decline is being replaced by this new, much more hopeful understanding of the brain's incredible ability to adapt and grow at any age. So researchers have identified these 3 keys to what they call successful aging. And here's the really cool part. Look at them. 2 of the 3 are things you can actively control, keeping your mind and body working well, and, most importantly, staying engaged with life. The big takeaway is that we have agency here. We're in the driver's seat.
This whole idea boils down to something amazing called neuroplasticity. You've heard the saying, use it or lose it, right? Well, it's literally true for your brain. They've done studies where animals in interesting, challenging environments actually grew heavier brains with more neural connections. And guess what? The same basic idea applies to us. We can literally build ourselves a better brain.
And all of this leads to one of the most hopeful findings in all of neuroscience. It comes from the famous Nun study. This long-term research gave us powerful evidence that by constantly stimulating your mind, just by being a lifelong learner, you can build up a cognitive reserve. It's like a backup power source for your brain that might help prevent or delay the symptoms of diseases like Alzheimer's. How amazing is that?
So, when you start to weave all these different threads together, the economic power, the rising happiness, the brain's ability to keep growing, the whole picture of aging starts to look a lot less like a closing door and a lot more like a brand new, incredibly rich chapter is just beginning.
And this new chapter, it's defined by a huge shift in perspective. It's about gaining the wisdom to see the big picture. It's about having the confidence to finally stop worrying what other people think.
It's about the clarity to know what really, truly matters to you. And it's about having the time to actually go do those things and the ability to just be present in the moment.
All of this accumulated experience, it cultivates a new role for us, the role of the sage. You become a source of wisdom not because you read about it in some book, but because you've actually lived it. And younger generations are really starting to look for that kind of hard-won experience.
And this kind of wisdom isn't about having all the answers or telling everyone what to do. It's about something so much more powerful, isn't it? It's about offering radical presence, the simple, profound gift of listening, of understanding, of just being there for someone. That's a gift that only deep life experience can really provide.
So maybe we've been looking at the whole map upside down this whole time. Maybe getting older isn't about a slow descent into a valley. Maybe it's the final steady climb, where the air gets clearer, the perspective gets wider, and the view from the top is just absolutely breathtaking.